大家好，欢迎收看引力波音乐特别节目2305，我是农西利耶。17年10月初，我们受邀拜访了坐落于英国 Doncaster 的 Hiwatt Custom Shop 工厂。那么我们今天来聊一聊 Hiwatt。Hiwatt 这个品牌在摇滚的历史长河中扮演着重要的地位。从最早的齐柏林飞艇、平克·弗洛伊德、滚石和 The Who 都是 Hiwatt 的忠实用户。这些乐队都是60年代初成立，60年代末、70年代达到顶峰。他们都是摇滚历史上重要的声音、开拓者和璀璨的巨星。不仅他们的作品被世人传颂至今，而且他们的声音也深深地印刻在大家的脑海中。那些传奇的声音很多都来自 Hiwatt 音箱。要说 Hiwatt 是摇滚历史上重要的一部分，一点都不为过。这个历史今天一直延续着。虽然 Hiwatt 这个品牌将近50岁，但就他们而言，一切都是新的。Hiwatt 原来的持有者出于一些原因，不愿意把公司转让他的儿子，这事也挺奇怪的。在中国肯定是家族世袭，这么传奇的牌子怎么可能说丢就丢呢？在16年4月份，来自加拿大的 Hiwatt 狂热爱好者 Darren Glynn 和他的朋友们买下了 Hiwatt 这个品牌。我们与 Hiwatt Darren 初次见面还是在2017年的上海乐展上，特别热心的与我们确定好了时间。通过私下交流采访中，他流露出对 Hiwatt 这个品牌的热爱。他们重建了团队，从原来的30到50人的团队变成了现在只有10个人，重新建设 Hiwatt 工厂，重新与世界建立联系，重新整理和开发产品。这次探访主要的讲解人员是 Key， 他们的产品总监，实地掌握 Hiwatt 的日常运作和制作。Key 虽然是个很大只很壮的年轻人，但是非常的 nice。我们的话题从 Hiwatt 小规模团队的作业开始。
Late 60s, early 70s. We keep a relatively small team.
So why small team?
We don't need any more. We all cross-trained, so we can all do each other's jobs. If it's fitting up, if it's testing, if it's building, manufacturing. We have the sales department upstairs. We have the accounts department upstairs. Obviously, that's a lot more people. But with the core builders, we keep to a core building of around about 6 to 9 people. Like I said, they're all musicians, which we appreciate with musicians. Sometimes a few of them go off on tour and things. But I think that generally we work on a core number of 7 people full time. And that keeps us happy in terms of building the amps. The labour intensive amps, they take a long time to build, but they take a long time to build because we have to do it right. So that we're not dealing with Toyota production systems here in terms of we don't have 400 people working. We adhere to the old cottage industry ideal. As Hiwatt grows, and it has grown in the last 2 years since the new guys took over, when we first started, we started with a core of just 4 people because it was a new company, and it was a new company to the new owners, although the managing director has been a Hiwatt user for years. He was a drummer in a band called the Hooligans. He knew Hiwatt as much as I knew Hiwatt. So they had a lot of knowledge about it, but it was a new venture for them taking over from the old owners. And so we had a core of 4 people, and that's now built up to a core of sort of 8 to 9. And that's just in a 24-month period when we've been doing R&D, when we've been doing, trying to create bigger presence for Hiwatt, when we've been going to Shanghai, we've been going to Frankfurt, we've been going to Nam. So it's taken a while, and we had to get this unit. We had to custom make this unit for us to make it work for our needs. So it's been, Hiwatt's expanded 100% in the last 24 months. And if we carry on doing that, we can bring new engineers on board to keep up with the demand. But right now, we're just as we need to be. And when we officially launched Hiwatt with the new owners, actually in Frankfurt, 2018. So we are about to really launch our new products. We've got 3 new products for Custom Shop. We've got that's the prototype for the 50 watt bass. That's going to be a 50 watt hand built bass head and or combo. We've got the monster bass amp, and we've got the high gain amp, the hand built high gain amp. So all these things are coming together at once. So there's been a lot of time for R&D, which has been, well, research and development, which has been very, very positive for us. And we're just positively looking to the future. And when you look at it in those terms, 24 months has gone very fast, and things are looking really good.
Key 和团队制作相投的一个2人小车间叫做咕噜姆洞穴，典故来自《指环王》，具体为什么叫这个也没什么好的解释。不过看到这个名字，大家都莫名的想象，麻雀虽小，五脏俱全，里面各式各样的工具和零件整齐罗列，一台台 Hiwatt Custom Shop 世界一流的香头，皆来自这个小小的洞穴。
We're here in Doncaster, and essentially what we do here is we build the Custom Shop Hiwatts. All these amps are hand wired, and basically what we do is we go back to the old days. Hiwatt was started by a guy called Dave Reeves, around 66, 67, and the ethos that we have today is really just to build the amps exactly how he did. We do a few modifications to make it better. Obviously it's a health and safety conscious world, so we make a few changes, but essentially these are very, very much built exactly the same way as they were in the late 60s. I think that Hiwatt, I think I'm right in saying Hiwatt really is the only hand-built amp on the market today. There's other amps, sure, that are hand assembled, but ours are actually sort of hand-built. I can show you through.
Okay.
I'll show you how we come up to that. Now, this is actually a part-built DR201. DR stands for Dave Reeves, who's the founder and the inventor behind this particular brand of amplification. And this is a 201, which means it's a 200 watter. So what we have here, just to show some of our construction techniques, everything's hand built, hand wired. We've gone back, take you from the chassis to begin with. The chassis have been upgraded. We had new owners in April 2016, and they wanted to revert back to real quality. The new owners are very, very adamant that we're not all about quantity, we're all about quality, which is what is associated with the Hiwatt name. So first off, we upgraded the chassis. These are steel chassis. They are up to the same, well, they're actually higher rated than the millimeter depth that we used to have on the old Hiwatts. It carries these big transformers, and these big transformers, it's a hefty weight. These are locally sourced, like the chassis, and these are Partridge designed, so they hark back to the original design of the DR201. All our transformers are sort of based on the Partridge design of the originals. That's the 100 watt, the 50 watt, the 200 watt, you know, all the way across the range. So the housing on these transformers, obviously it's very much like the originals, and now we have a chassis purpose built at the right kind of tolerance to withstand this, because these are professional amps. They're made to be used on the road, and reliability is the key. So this is why they're built so heavy. Now, when we say they're hand built, these are our turret boards. When we first start off, our turret boards look like this, and we turret these by hand using hammers, angles, and basically we turret them ourselves. And so, quick demonstration. That's a turret board. That would be for a studio stage, and that shows the start of the wiring. And if I pop down here, I've got a part-built one, and this is how they look when we've done the initial wiring. And obviously we populate these with the necessary capacitors and resistors. So we always solder across the top, and then we build the potentiometer parts, which is your volume controls, your presences, tone network. Yeah, that's right. And obviously those then sit in there, and then we wire up the EQs, the potentiometers. So it's really hand built. Now even the wires, if I can show you one here, our wires come plain like this. Okay, And by the way, our wiring is upgraded. The original DR103s used to use 25 gauge. We now have upgraded it all the way to 22 gauge.
在采访中 ，Key 一直重申，我们要的是质量而不是数量。这也是为什么他们能在这种看似普通的地方做出如此优秀的香头的很重要的原因之一。说的高大上一点，就是质量优先的这个企业文化，从上至下贯穿每个人心中。所有的修改都基于客户的反馈和长达50年的品牌经验积累。比如更好的线材，足以防弹的托架。
Why?
It creates what we noticed over the last sort of 15 years since I've been here is when they're used professionally, it's not playing them live that affects them. It's actually the transportation between the gigs. Being in sort of at the back of a tour bus or at the bottom of a tour bus, you know, the road's vibrating them, it's shaking everything. So, although we didn't have many failures, we thought there were a few with the old kind of wiring, the 25, the 24 gauge. By upgrading it to 22 gauge, you're having a stronger wire, much stronger wire. It also has more surface area, which is more for the solder to latch onto. So all round it creates a better amplifier and that creates better reliability, less chance of breaking down in transit. It's funny that playing them live doesn't really affect them. It's literally the transportation between the two, how roadies handle them, how you handle your amp. So we've upgraded the wires, and the wires we actually, you can see, we insulate every single wire ourselves. It's very labour intensive and it's very true to the original ways of building Hiwatts. So, you know, the new Hiwatts, you know, that's what we're all about. We're all about the quality, not the quantity. As far as we know, there's only 3 things guitarists, bass players want. They want an amplifier that is affordable.
Affordable.
And by affordable, I mean is affordable for the value you're getting. This is why Hiwatts are worth so much, because the reliability is lifelong. And you really are buying a top of the range, boutique, hand-built amp. They also want something that makes them sound good, and they also want something that never breaks down. Those are 3 things guitarists want as far as we're aware. And that's what we have. That's what our ethos is. That's what we're driving forwards to. We're driving forwards to making an amp affordable for what it is. We're making it, because obviously it's a high-end amp, but we're also making an amp that makes you sound great, and Hiwatts make you sound fantastic. And something that is also reliable, because you don't want something going down on stage in the middle of your gig. So that's kind of the ethos of the company. Very few changes to these amps. We've done certain changes which are structural. Obviously we've upgraded the chassis. If I get an old chassis out, you'll see here, this is an oldie. We used to have circular fixing holes.
So how is it?
This is an old prototype chassis.
Okay.
And this is probably from, I'd say that's a 2006 chassis, because we've gone back to having them zinc and yellowed. This is true to the old style of chassis. In the mid-2000s, they went with this look, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not as quite as well protected. And this, and you can see here.
And not thick as the new one.
Yeah, and I mean that's a 200 watts. If I get if we pop over here, you can see it. This is a 50-100 chassis. You can see directly there the difference in the thickness of the chassis we used to use.
Yes. Why you build this that thick?
Because the integrity of the amplifier is so much better. It's a stronger amplifier. It's more roadworthy. It handles the weight of the transformers. It just creates it stronger. The idea is these amplifiers are military spec, which is where we get the idea from the Second World War from. Dave Reeves and Harry Joyce. Harry Joyce was in the military. He was one of the best military spec wirers that I think the amplifier world has ever known. And he worked exclusively at the time for Hiwatt. And the idea behind military spec is traffic light panels. These are military spec because they're engraved. They're not printed, they're actually engraved. You can feel the engraving across.
Yeah.
Makes them easy to read. And this was very much part of there was a phrase that Dave Reeves used. He said, I make tank-like built amplifiers. And we try and do that today, and we succeed at doing that today. We make amps that are built like tanks, and that's the idea behind this strengthened chassis. It's certainly the idea behind keeping true to the traffic panels. And even here, we've upgraded these to hex nuts because we found that, this is going back a few years, we found that these would often dislodge themselves, and because they were circular, there was nothing to hold them.
Yes.
So if people over tightened the fixings, they would just spin out.
Yes.
And as soon as one spins out, it means the integrity of the others is
Other
affected.
one will be felt. Yeah.
That's right. With these hex, nothing ever happens because they're actually moulded into the chassis, and the integrity of the strength of them is it's probably, I don't know, I'm just guessing, 50 times better than these. All I can tell you is we've never had a problem since we upgraded to the hex, and this is something that came in probably May. It's one of the first changes that the owners had, because they have the new owners. They have a history in both music, in amplification, but also in steel fabrications and everything else. So it's all gone to the benefit of the Hiwatt user, the end user. So that's how the sort of production side of things has changed. Again, we stay true. It's it's labour intensive, but we stay true to the Harry joist wiring, which is all twisted wires. Again, I've already mentioned the 22 gauge, so that's uprated. And we use the very best components. We make sure that instead of just having 3 input jacks to change the impedance, we actually use impedance selectors. We also use voltage selectors. Now this is, because these were professional amps, we need to be able to, the end user needs to be able to use these in every country.
Yes.
So we've got 100, 115, 230 and 240. And we make sure that obviously the windings on the transformers correlate to that. It means you can basically go from Europe to America to Canada to Africa to China. Yeah. Wherever you go in the world, the voltage is there. And it's not it just means that, these amps are international amps, they work for every single kind of voltage. So every care and intention has been put into these amps to make them as professional as possible. Obviously the build, we have all our engineers, they're all trained. Something else unique we do, every single engineer actually builds an amp from start to finish. And what we find with that is we find that the continuity of the build of the amp is better. Instead of having someone do one thing and someone do another thing and someone do another thing, what we have is we only make these amps to order. And because we make them to order, we'll have a production order from our accounts department. That production order will come down to us in the engineering facility. And so these guys will basically have the name, the address, the model, and the delivery date for these amps. So they know, every engineer knows who he's making these amps for. It's not just going on a stock shelf. It has a name and an address attached to it. With that, they start from the very beginning of making the boards, the input jacks, whatever, and then they assemble the amp in their way. What we tend to do as well is we have an independent person, another engineer. They test the other engineer's amps, because it's always better to get a second opinion in the test phase. With testing, the testing is very comprehensive. We do the initial verification, inspection and testing on it. We also do individual tests for insulation resistance, earth bonding, and also load tests. Then, once that's all satisfactory, all the voltages are right and we're happy with it, they then go on a soak test bench. We put a signal through it for 8 hours. After that 8 hours, which is pretty comprehensive, imagine playing an amp for 8 hours constantly, especially if you're Townsend. So we drive the amp hard, we heat it up, make sure the transformers are good and hot, that the valves are good and hot. Then what we do is we turn it off. The next day, we put it on for another 4 hours. Now what we do by doing this is we allow any stresses in the transformers, in the valves, tubes, because often, if there are going to be fault conditions, it doesn't occur when the amp first heats up. It occurs in the cooling period. And what we do is we allow the amp to completely cool down overnight, and then we heat it up again. We get like 1%. If there's going to be a failure, it's going to be a tube. But even those are kept to a minimum because we use JJs. The reason we use JJs is Hiwatts, their very name, Hiwatt, it means it's got a lot of headroom. And what Hiwatts have, yeah, absolutely. And what Hiwatts have is they have quite a high screen voltage. We found JJs, we've tried other valves, not going to mention names, we've tried other valves, many other valves, but, and they probably work great for other amps. So I won't name names. However, we have found that JJs and Golden Lion are amazing and they work really well. JJs are our standard because they handle the high screen voltages, they have reliability and they have a good long life. One change we did make is we put in a variable bias circuit, and the variable bias circuit means that we can bias the tubes perfectly so they last longer. We appreciate at Hiwatt that valves are expensive. They're not as cheap, they're the most expensive they've ever been in history, they're not as cheap as they used to be. So we want them to last as long as possible. So instead of running them too hot or too cold, we bias everyone using the oscilloscope and the voltage and we run the 1 ohm resistor through, and we make sure that we actually bias them to the optimum bias for the actual valves. And that's one of the changes we've made, and it's a positive change. And again, it's something that we've done because although the old amps were fixed bias, we've had a lot of success with the variable bias. You need it in today's modern society, or musical society. You need it. So, in terms of the build, going back to the actual engineers, they build it from start to finish. It solves any problems in transfer. When you hand an amp over, maybe someone does it in a different way to the others. All our amp engineers are trained in the same way, but they all have their own unique way of building amps. Obviously, like I mentioned, we use someone else to test them, another engineer, and we find it works very well. The soak testing always brings out any niggly issues. Like I said, it's nearly always valves. And then they get fitted up, they're ready to go. And like I said, one of our key elements is reliability, and that's what we're known for.
不要数量，只要质量，这是 Key 反复提到的。我们也悉数采访过其他知名品牌，虽然大家做的产品不尽相同，但是都认为质量是做产品最为重要的因素之一。接下来 Key 带我们参观了他们的具体测试区域，再次对他们的严谨肃然起敬。
I mean, we can see through here if you want to walk through. As I said previously, everything we do, getting a bit of echo, everything we do is made to order. This is our custom shop orders at the moment.
Wow.
We've got you can see a lot more in production through there. So obviously, the Hiwatts are working great, and we can pick any one of these up. Doesn't matter which they are, and you'll see exactly the same kind of
Standard quality.
Yeah, anything. It doesn't matter which one you pick up. This is a 100 watt. Again, straight away, it's exactly the same. It's all straight lines, right angles. This lets you know these are very serviceable amps. Okay, this is the best thing about them as well. Everything has a right angle. That goes directly down to that. That's onto a 22k resistor. So it really, the idea that we standardise the builds. That one isn't quite finished. So it doesn't make a difference. To us, our engineers are all qualified to the same high level. And that's what we look for, and that's what we have to demand. Because we're Hiwatt, we have a responsibility to stay true to what is the heritage and the legacy. And we're happy to do that. It's a challenge we're up for. And because of it, we get to make amplifiers and for the rest of our lives, and it's not a bad job. It's not a bad job by half.
Yeah, love it.
So this is the testing facility. This is where all the amps get soak tested. This is our soak test station. Basically, we can test up to 10 amps at a time. And this is where they basically...
So, what is that?
Okay, so these are resistors. These are 300 watt resistors. These are 100 watt resistors. And what these do, you've got a 10 ohm and a 47 ohm. That makes an 8 ohm load. Now the 8 ohm load is specifically there. Those resistors are specifically there because it creates 8 ohms, which is the load of a speaker. And what we do is this goes into the back of the amp, into the 8 ohm setting, and it creates a dummy load and it's silent. And basically what we do is, on here, we get to put a signal through a signal generator. It's a 1K signal. It goes through here, and then these, if I can get them out, that will do it. So if it was a 200 watter, I'll have to turn it the other way around, obviously.
Okay.
Signal goes in there. That's the equivalent of a guitarist going through a guitar. And that's the signal that's going through the amp. It then comes out, obviously it gets amplified, it comes out through the dummy load. And these are only here to save our ears, because it means it's 8 hours of silent testing. So this is how the soak test station works. It's basically, these act as speakers. So they've got a resistive load of 8 ohm or 16 ohm. Some of these are 16 ohm. And it means we can silently test amps for 8 hours and then the next day 4 hours. It saves our ears, it stops us going insane, and it keeps the neighbours happy. So that's basically how we work it here. So we can test up to 10. And the mains transformers get nice and hot. And it beds the valves in, because obviously all the JJs are brand new. It beds them in. By that it stops, we make sure that there's no nuisance popping, or there's no, we call it cherrying up when they glow excessively red and things. We just make sure that even the parts we have to buy in, the integrity of those parts is 100%. Because a Hiwatt, obviously, every amp, you're governed by the quality of your tubes. So we try and make them as bulletproof as possible, even with things like the valves and things. After this stage, they then go upstairs, they get fitted up into the boxes. All our boxes, again, chassis locally sourced, custom made in England, traffic light panels, the transformers. We really do our very best to source from England, even input jacks, output jacks, and the boxes. The boxes are made by a British company, specifically an English company actually. So we don't import anything for the boxes or anything like that. All the panels and all the badges, they're made locally. So they then go upstairs, they get fitted up into the boxes, they then get sound tested for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 50 minutes, depending on how long they've been soak tested for. But the sound testing usually takes place over 2 days, so we'll try and get the engineers to basically plug into them for arguably 20 minutes the first day and then 20 minutes the next day. And that just again makes sure that we keep on with the reliability. You're very, very, very rare that you'd ever have a problem once they get fitted up, because with the testing here, it's so comprehensive. Like I said, with the initial verification, inspection and test, load, insulation resistance, earth bonding, we do our very best to make sure that everything is as bulletproof as possible. And you know, it works. It's a good station. It's custom built. When we took the factory on, it was completely empty. So we've actually custom built this just to suit our needs, and it works very, very well. So we can keep a relatively small team, like they used to in the late 60s, early 70s.
这样的工匠精神 ，Hiwatt 才能脱颖而出，成为摇滚乐历史上重要的一部分。他们能做到这样，是因为他们自己也从小弹琴，所以能感同身受。他们当天在场的工程师 Key 和 Arv， 和他们的市场部的 Bernie 都是很多年的乐手。这样对音乐的热爱，才能转化成对这个事业的热情，才能带来人生的乐趣。最后 Key 跟我们讲述了关于 Hiwatt 的音色问题，什么样的乐手适合使用 Hiwatt？
The players who use Hiwatt, everyone can use a Hiwatt. The reason why is they're known. Historically, they're known for their clean sound. They're known for having huge amounts of headroom. And above all, they sound great. They're rich in fifth and third harmonics. They sound, to my mind, out of the 5 sort of ultra brands, your Marshalls, your Voxes, your Laneys, etc., etc. We all use EL34s, but this is the best sounding clean amp in the world, bar none. It has the greatest amount of headroom. Dave Reeves really touched on something amazing when he created the first DR103. And with pedals, look at who we use, look at who we have. We have David Gilmour, who is probably known for having the greatest tone of any guitarist of all time. Regularly, in every poll, still Comfortably Numb comes out as the greatest solo and the greatest tone of all time. And he uses Hiwatt. He used them exclusively around that time. He uses them today. I just saw a documentary a couple of weeks ago that he did over his new album. I think it's called Rattle That Lock.
Oh, okay.
And he used Hiwatts for those on the documentary. But he's known for using effects and having that kind of affected sound. Hiwatts are the best amp on the market to do that because they're so pure. So your playing comes through, the style, if you want to drive it like Pete Townsend used to drive it, you're not creating distortion, but a distortion pedal will work great through it. But what you're doing is you're driving it, you're creating a sound. How hard you play it, they're kind of touch responsive. If you want to play sweet and mellow and soft, you'll get that sensitivity coming through the amplifier. If you want to play hard and heavy, that will come through at the same time. So they really do amplify the guitars fantastically well across the board. And we're very proud of that here. I mean, we didn't design them, Dave Reeves did, but we're very happy to stay true to his legacy and try and continue to create amps in exactly the same way that he did in a modern era, which really goes for quantity, not quality. We're actually reverting back to the quality ethos. And we think that's a better way, and that's what people are getting when they buy a Hiwatt today. And like I said, we're all the engineers, we're all musicians, we're all very proud to be here. And I think the future is onwards and upwards for Hiwatt. I think, especially Custom Shop, it's doing fantastically well.
嗨，你好，谢谢收看我们的节目。你的每一次点击、评论和留言，都是我们继续的动力。如果你喜欢我们的节目，别忘了订阅、关注，第一时间获悉我们的动态。接下来，我们会购置更多的设备，给大家讲讲故事，做测评。如果你想支持我们的节目，可以扫下这里的功德箱，支持并且留言，我们会在之后的系列节目中一一读到和回答你的弹幕。如果你想与我们直接交流和提出建议，微信公众号、微博搜索“引力波音乐”来加入社群。如果你想更多的了解我们的产品，打开淘宝店铺搜索“引力波音乐”。再次谢谢你的收看，我们下次节目再见。